Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Vince Rocco in New York, where the state of our industry needs to not make assumptions. So let's get right to what everyone is talking about. For years, New York City real estate operated on a set of assumptions that seemed almost unshakable. Manhattan always comes back. Mortgage rates will eventually fall. Buyers will stretch, and sellers can always ask what they want and test the market. Luxury always leads. And if you simply wait long enough, the market will reward you. Today, many of these assumptions are being challenged. We're in a market where higher carrying costs matter as much as a purchase price. Buyers are asking tougher questions, doing more due diligence, and refusing to overlook flaws simply because it's New York. Sellers can no longer rely on yesterday's comparable sales to justify today's asking price. Even seasoned professionals are finding that experience alone isn't enough. It has to be paired with adaptability. The reality is that we're not in a weak market, we're in a smarter market. Inventory is gradually improving, transactions are returning, and confidence is rebuilding, but success belongs to those who recognize that the old playbook no longer guarantees results. Pricing strategy, negotiations, and trusted advice have become more valuable than ever. So today we're asking an important question. What easy assumptions have we been making about New York real estate, and what should replace them? And here on set with me today are two gentlemen from Compass, Ian Slater and Daniel Blatman, and they join me now to discuss. But first, let me welcome my listeners and viewers from across the United States and all around the globe. This is Talking New York Real Estate, so let's go behind the headlines and inside the state of our industry.
From a client's perspective, move day is when the transaction becomes real. It's the moment when everything that happened during the deal finally turns into a lived experience. That's why experienced agents treat the move as part of the transaction, not an afterthought. The right moving partner helps ensure that the final step reflects the same professionalism as the transaction itself. Roadway supports agents with the infrastructure, coordination, and accountability required to execute it properly. Roadway Moving and Storage supporting agents through seamless white glove moves.
All right, everybody, we are back. As I said, we're here with two gentlemen from Compass, Ian and Daniel, two of my favorite guests, always very articulate, very smart, and know this business inside and out. But one of the things I want to talk about today are assumptions, and I mentioned it at the start of the program in the intro. People make a lot of assumptions. Most of the time, they're incorrect, and I was mentioning to Daniel just before the show started, talking to somebody, client, late yesterday, and, my assumption is, and I said, no, wrong. Let's get rid of that word. Let's understand what we're asking for, what we're talking about, what we need, etc. So, Daniel, I want to start with you. If you had to name one assumption, okay, about New York City real estate and our market that no longer holds true, what would that be? In all of the assumptions that we have heard in all the years we're in this business, what one, would you come up to and say, well,
Let's go with that condos are better than co-ops.
Okay. Now, do you usually get an explanation behind that when somebody says it?
So there's so many misconceptions about the New York real estate market, and everybody thinks, oh, I need to buy a condo because I'm going to be able to sublet it. The reality is you're never going to sublet your apartment. And even if you're going to sublet, because New York City has a different level of math than anywhere else, and you want that freedom, in a condo you have higher closing costs than you do with a co-op. They are about 30% more expensive than a co-op. And just in order to break even on your rent versus what your monthly payment is going to be, you need at least 50 to sometimes 60% equity in order to actually do that. So if you only have 20 to 30% equity or 40, you're still going to sell. Plus, our real estate is expensive. We have a model where you need to step up, which is what keeps the two of us always employed. So when you look at this, you started a studio, you started a 1-bed, then you need to get a 2-bed, then you need to get a 3-bed. You can't really expand your apartment because if you do, you combine with the neighbor, then your monthlies are more expensive and you have to renovate. So you're always going to be buying and selling in a different way. And when you look at that, you're not going to end up holding on to that one property anyway. So find something that actually makes sense for you.
Ian, what about an assumption that you think, doesn't hold true any longer?
Yeah, mine is different, but I also want to add to that. I think like the condo co-op thing, I always talk about this, is that people think the freedom is automatically a good thing with a condo, whereas frequently I find right now a lot it can actually be kind of a bad thing because if people if someone above you dumps their apartment at a low number in a condo, it totally resets all the comps of the line in the building, and it's very, very hard to get over. And that can be for any reason, right? They're a foreigner that can't come to the U.S. anymore. Their kid is out of school. They got sick of it and just decided, screw it, get rid of it. All of a sudden,
they just need the money.
all of a sudden, all the values in your line are down 10%. For what reason? Like, does it have anything to really do with anything other than that person's choice?
Right.
Yeah.
Not really. So, like, that sheer lack
at
of
all.
control, like, if freedom becomes lack of control, right? Which is, in many cases, kind of a bad thing. And then it sort of leads into what I was going to say, is that I think that an assumption I hear a lot is that the New York market is efficient. Right, there's a lot of eyes on it. There's a lot of global eyes on it.
Efficient.
I think it's actually incredibly inefficient and becoming more and more so. Even in the face of having more data, more AI, it's becoming more confusing. Actually,
Explain why it's inefficient, because or which aspects of it are inefficient. Because some aspects are efficient, but which ones are inefficient?
I think that we can go into the entire transaction process as wildly inefficient, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. It's more comp data and resale value and ultimate values and where the buyers are willing to pay and when. And I think people assume in every situation you're going to be able to predict what something is worth and when something's going to sell and how something's going to sell, when in many cases in a global market you literally can't predict it. And I'm very open with sellers. I'm like, I don't know. Somebody could come in there today that I wasn't predicting would come in and pay the number. Right?
Yeah.
All signs point to probably not, but if I
you
were a
never know.
gambling man,
And
like I would always put a little bit on the fact that someone might come in from, another country and pay up today. But people tend to maybe rely on that a little bit too much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thinking about buyers, what, in your opinion, Ian, what's some of the biggest misconceptions that buyers, bring to the table today in this market, based on what we talked about? Assumptions, they're either right or wrong. Most of the time, they're wrong. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that buyers come to the table with when they're working with us, want to work with us, et cetera?
I would say two of the misconceptions that people have are, one, that we have like an incredibly deep book of off-market listings that are better deals than the things that are on the market. This is a huge, huge, huge problem that I think most brokers are actually actively making worse for ourselves.
Can we just say, if you want something off market, it's going to cost you more money?
Yeah, a lot more
That's
money.
Typically speaking,
That's
it's
what's
going
gonna
to be. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I just had a guy call me the other week who wants to flip an apartment. And I was like, he's like, yeah, you find any off-market deal for me that's good. I was like, you need to go and sort on Street Easy by the longest on the market, right? Look at the things that have been on the market for the longest. Go look at those apartments, right? Those are going to be the ones that are negotiable, not necessarily the ones that are in my pocket off market where people live, right?
Exactly.
He wants to renovate and flip it?
Correct.
Oh, the margins on renovating and flipping
Very difficult.
is like,
very difficult.
people do it for
Very hard.
$75,000 in profit, and it's going to take you a year and a half to do it. Like,
and so much headache.
why would you do that?
But also my thinking on off-market stuff, if people think they're going to get a deal, they're probably not, because it's
opposite.
off-market. Not really many people know about it, so people aren't seeing it or offering or trying to get numbers down. The number is what it is.
The
it's a premium.
psychology of the seller is sitting at a premium before it sits on the market.
Absolutely. So like you said, look at the longest on the market and then go from there if you're looking for a deal or some better pricing or whatever.
My other assumption I think a lot of people make is that they are either the wealthiest or only one in the room in a like buying situation, right? Which sometimes is the case. But a lot of times people will come into New York or assume like they just made a lot of money and they're going to be the only buyer who can operate at a certain level. And people are very blinders on about how much wealth there is in New York City.
Yeah.
So sometimes they'll get outbid shockingly at a certain level that they will be surprised by. But we are telling them, listen, there are multiple buyers looking at a lot of these things if they're good.
Yeah. For an example,
Absolutely.
just to back that up, I had a bidding war where the seller's agent decided that they didn't want to have bidding wars. So instead of actually asking for best and highest, where they would have gotten more money, they just had each buyer bidding separately against themselves. But we didn't know who the other buyer was. It's a $3.5 million co-op. So not even super luxury, but $3.5 million co-op. My client, just as an example, makes $11 million a year. And then we got outbid by a billionaire for $3.5 million. We thought we had time. If she had made the offer 2 weeks before, then we would have actually gotten a really good price, but didn't happen. Waited 2 weeks, then this other person comes in, and it became this 3-day back and forth. Both had sent in deposits, and you didn't realize yeah, you're bidding against a billionaire anyway.
Anyway.
And it's rounding errors.
In another life, maybe I will make $11 million a year.
But
when I hear these things,
3.5,
when I work with
like,
people
it's
who
not
do
even
it, it's
expensive.
kind of like, oh, okay, that's quite a number.
Yeah.
Okay. On the other side, sellers, okay, it's often, known that sellers will say, well, if we wait long enough, we'll get the number that we're really looking for. Is that still a realistic strategy for sellers to be thinking that in our current market and how our markets have changed in the last 5 or 6 years? What's the deal on that?
So
I still run into that.
So that really depends on the type of property and the sub-market that they're in. So our market is changing, and the New York City market is finally growing again in a way because for the first time in 6 years, buyers have to worry about the commute and the return to office. So even if they were commuting before and they think, oh, I've been commuting 5 days a week for the last 4 years, who cares? Yeah. Now you have to commute with every other little Becky from Ohio also commuting. So when you're doing that subway switch at Atlantic, or you have to let 6 L trains go at Bedford, you're now having to corral like a cow again for the first time, and you don't like the feeling. So we have people moving back into different neighborhoods. So you have to understand, if you're the seller and you're looking at that, what is your neighborhood trajectory? How has your neighborhood grown? Is your neighborhood gaining people or is it losing people? And then when it comes to your specific property, have you done anything to make your apartment have any sex appeal? Because you have to also remember, everybody has been looking at West Elm, Crate and Barrel, CB2. They've been going to all of these showrooms that unless your home looks like a showroom and unless your photos look like a dating profile that's not going to get swiped, the challenge is that buyers will overlook you because they think that it's going to take too much work just because you haven't presented it right. And we are in a market where there is the potential for the market to chase your price up, but you have to understand that pricing is just placement in the market. It's not an actual semblance of value. I don't know if semblance is the right word, but when you're thinking about that, it is a positioning tool, and sometimes you're priced in a way that you're not even in the market. You're on it, but you're not in it.
Well, to follow on that, I was going to ask the next question. We hear this definition of well-priced property, and we all, as brokers or agents, want to say, or listing agents, hey, we're priced well, it's going to sell, we're priced for the market. Is that something, that's changed in the last few years? Have we gotten better at that based on what you just said? Have we gotten better at pricing for what the market can bear? You mentioned before about comps. I mean, people look at this stuff, right? But when we say well-priced property, does it really mean that?
No.
I think people look at a lot of different factors when it comes into pricing now, right? So before you could say, okay, let's look at a 3-bedroom in a neighborhood and we can compare them all if they're all condos with doormen. Now people are going to look at the monthlies of the building. It's a huge thing. People are very much looking at the monthlies. People are looking at how much work something needs because they can't move into it if it needs work. So then the pricing all of a sudden has to do with the monthlies and how much work it needs and what's going to cost to do the work and what's going to cost for them to rent somewhere else. Financial health of the building, right? That's like a big thing also where people want to understand what's going on with upcoming work and Local 11 and elevator replacement. I see this happening everywhere. These buildings are financially struggling. All of those things go into how much, like, you could look at something and think it's really well priced, but all of a sudden if it's 2x the monthlies as something else that's similar, all of a sudden I might not be that well priced. And this becomes much more important when you have high interest rates.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but carrying costs, and we've talked about this on this program many times already, but carrying cost or monthlies are outrageous compared to what they were just a couple of years ago. So when you're looking at they're crazy. So when you're looking at the overall, it's really not, sometimes it's really not even about what I'm finding. It's really not about the purchase price anymore. Negotiate a little bit maybe here and there, but people are looking at what is it going to cost me every month to live in this apartment, whether it's a co-op, whether it's a condo, and that hits their budget, that meets their budget or not. And this is what people are mostly concerned about, and oftentimes I don't have an answer for that. So if you guys can help me out, great, because people say to me, what about this and what about that? And I always say, well, carrying costs are not going to go down. They're going to be what they are today and probably more every year. And by the way, and we've mentioned this many times on this program, in the last couple of years, for the most part, not every building, 10% increase in maintenance year over year. That's double digit. Okay, people used to carry on about 4% or 5%. Average was like 3 or 4%. Now it's in some cases 10%. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you get over that? What are the assumptions there when people look at that and say, "Whoa"?
Well, there's some things that when I am talking with buyers, and there's sometimes that just if we're running around looking at different buildings, I will really present certain buildings in a different way. And just like looking for, like if you're looking at a building, you're joining a relationship with a bunch of other people. And just like looking for somebody that you're going to date or marry, you want something with a growth mindset. And if the building doesn't have a growth mindset, and this is where co-ops get a really bad reputation, because you have a lot of people that have lived there for a very long time, and unfortunately they don't have income anymore. So there's a lot of deferred maintenance that has happened. Now, when it comes to a lot of those buildings, that deferred maintenance is finally hitting them, but it's in a very negative way. When the building has a growth mindset and they understand these are the things that we need to do, it will actually help the financial health of the building. We now need to do it, and that will also increase sales values. Then they have to be willing to look at those projects. But they delayed things for so long that it's actually hitting them in a very negative way.
Yeah. All right, we've got to take a quick break. We're coming right back with Daniel and Ian right after these messages. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I'm Brian Scott Cohen, one of the top loan originators in the country, and the #1 mortgage originator at Guaranteed Rate Affinity. Guaranteed Rate Affinity arguably has the most advanced tech in the industry. Our completely digital loan process makes it easy and efficient for homeowners, from a 15-minute pre-approval to the digital application and through closing. My team and I would love to help you get into the home of your dreams.
From residential and commercial closings to litigation, Romer DeBoss is your full-service real estate law firm. We blend big firm knowledge with boutique-level attention, delivering outcomes that exceed every expectation. Contact us at romerdeboss.com.
Okay, we are back. So, Ian, for years, location was everything. Buyers looked at a location, wanted to live in a location, really wouldn't consider anywhere else but where they wanted to be. So, are people today placing greater emphasis on location, or is it kind of like, you know what, I really have to worry about my budget, my pocketbook, my whatever. So if I can find something a little less expensive in another neighborhood, maybe I'll make that work. What is your observation of that in your book of business as you're working with buyers these days?
I do wish I could say something controversial here, but I really can't. It really is still location.
Yep. I believe it is. Yeah.
It's actually more important, I would say, than ever before. I think there are times in the New York market where people are forced out of the core neighborhoods, and the city feels like it's in a growth time where they're willing to buy into a neighborhood that they feel is up and coming and maybe take a little bit more of a risk, pay less money, get something on like a fringe, and then watch it go up, theoretically. The problem is when the market starts to turn down, those are the ones that go down the quickest, right? So more people now are able to see and look back at like the modern market cycles in New York and say, okay, if you bought in a safe area, theoretically with a good exposure in a good building, you have more protected downside in a downturn. So obviously the main obvious things, a park view, right? A water view.
A water view, sure.
A West Village apartment. Those are always supply constrained things that you're going to feel like maybe you're paying up for in the beginning, but when you're going to sell it, you're going to see that same premium most likely. So
absolutely,
the answer is sometimes, but I would say more than ever, people are like core location
And
focused.
people say to me all the time, buy right and then sell right.
Correct.
You wanted to add to that?
I think we really need to highlight the exposure aspect, because having a good exposure is the paramount thing, and a good layout. That if you're going to buy in Tribeca or the West Village, people always think, oh, I bought in Tribeca or I bought in the West Village, I'm not supposed to lose money. I'm like, no, look at your layout. Why did you do this? And it has all of these other things. Did you really think that you were going to buy just for an example, one of my team members brought in this pitch. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath in a walk-up
That's
in the
tough.
West Village where they ended up at 1.2 all in, and they would never think that they were going to lose money. But it's like, guys, it's a walk-up where it's really a converted 2-bedroom just because you happen to have 2 windows in the living space, and you thought you were going to be able to sell it for more money. Like, this is only ever a $1 million apartment. Who do you think is going to buy a 2-bedroom co-op in the West Village?
Yeah.
You have to really understand the nuances of the space. And the dangerous thing that buyers have right now is because they have data. They have all of these aspects, and they think as much data as we have. The challenge is that there are so many nuances to the New York City real estate market in that you don't have the standard width of bathrooms from sink to wall. You don't have the standard size of showers. Sometimes you can't raise your elbows and you can't move. Sometimes you don't have the standard width between counters. Sometimes you can't even open the oven all the way or the dishwasher all the way. So you have to look at all these things and understand, why is yours going to sell and why is it never going to sell unless we put a lot of lipstick on it.
But how realistic are sellers, though, when you try to talk to them about that, right? I recently was out with a 3-bedroom buyer, and she wanted a minimum of 2 bathrooms. 3 would be great. We found one with 3, which was fine, and she's in contract. But we saw a bunch of them with only 1 bathroom. How do you have 3 bedrooms in 1 bathroom? And what seller really thinks they're going to sell that at a premium price, right? I don't know. It'll sell, but not at a premium. But Ian, going back to what Daniel said a little while ago, and we talked about, what you need to do
Sky.
to sell.
Getting sky matters. Nobody wants a dark apartment.
No, exactly. Well, the question is, back to what he said before, sexy. Make sure your apartment is sexy. When you walk into an apartment, and because I know what I do, and you look around, you think, oh Lord, this is really going to be a major challenge, because forget that it's not sexy, but it's a mess, or it really needs to be decluttered, or it really needs to be staged, or it really needs to be fluffed, whatever word you want to use. But the seller's kind of like, well, it's fine. I mean, how do you react to that? We know what the challenges are going to be.
It's just about managing expectations and being open with people, right? And being very upfront and saying, some people are willing to not lift a finger, or they don't want to lift a finger, and they understand that it's going to take their apartment longer to sell, and it might not sell at such a big number. And you go into it knowing that. And, you can go and say every week, all right, 4 people came in here and couldn't imagine themselves in the space. 3 people came in here and said they thought it was, they thought it needed too much work. Eventually, it may get through to them.
Reality hits.
That their apartment isn't presented in the right way. But a lot of them will, frankly, hold on for a long time if they're in that mindset.
Yeah.
So I always say to my team, right, and everyone, like, there's a scale of sellers, there's a scale of buyers, right? Some people are extremely real and need to do it today and will listen to everything you say. Some people kind of need to do it or kind of want to do it. They're not under a lot of pressure. I find a lot of this in the market today, frankly. And they're not going to listen to you quite as much. And that's okay, right? You have to understand, like, you look at your entire portfolio and say, some people it's going to take a bit longer to sell, not. Of course, you try to go into every single scenario and have every single apartment look at its optimal best. But we use our best tips and tricks to get everything done. Like, there's things that you can do to make things look better. We can virtually stage them, right? We can stage them a little bit. We can really dress them up for the photos. It doesn't always work as well as having a perfectly presented apartment.
Yep.
Yeah. But again, that's up to us as the expert and the consultant and the whatever to be able to at least try and have our sellers understand what can happen, what will happen, what will not happen, right?
Exactly.
It's always a little bit of everything. So,
And
our experience does that.
This goes back to the inefficiency, because sometimes there is a neighbor in the building who doesn't care, who wants the apartment, who knows it, loves it, and doesn't care. Walks in, it's an absolute pigsty, and will buy it.
Out of nowhere.
So that's why it's like,
does happen.
I'm not going to lie on here and be like, every single time it has to be fully staged. Sometimes,
No.
listen, you can get your random 2-bed, 1-bath walk-up, and someone will buy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Daniel, interest rates for the longest time have been, the star of every news article, every conversation about real estate in New York City. Are rates still the biggest obstacle today, or have we replaced that with other things? And we mentioned before, carrying cost, in my opinion, is carrying costs are kind of like put interest rates aside. They haven't really changed. They go up, they go down, they go up, they go down. They're still floating around 6+ and 7, right? How is that affecting the marketplace? And are people putting that much into that thought, or are they just kind of saying, you know what, time has passed, let's move on?
I think that you can look at the building carrying costs and you can look at the interest rates are still considered carrying costs. Like we're going to loop them into the exact same aspect of it. I think that the biggest obstacle in New York is mindset. And interest rates are always going to be there. The great thing is that you can refinance. The building maintenance or the common charges, as long as you understand what you're actually getting and the goals of it, then you're also going to be fine. When it comes to the mindset aspect of buying property, you have to be willing to go somewhere that the math will make sense for you. And if you're not willing to do that, and you're not willing to give up on certain things to gain something else, because we are all about instant gratification. We want what we want when we want it. And if anything, the New Yorker has just become more and more of an adult child, which I personally love. So because we're not willing to give up on anything, that forces us into certain circumstances that may not mathematically make sense. And in order to mathematically make sense, you have to be willing to move one train stop away. You have to move a 5-minute walk away from where your ideal place is. But people aren't willing to do it, so they have to make other mental sacrifices. When it comes to I always have a conversation with buyers of saying, what are you willing to give up? And when you're thinking about renting versus buying, we are now back into that New York City real estate market where we have less than 1% vacancy. There is nothing to rent. We've all now had the last 6 years of experience of you had a rent, then the next year your landlord decided to sell, because right now we're kind of flipping a little bit to a seller's market. So people that have been renting are now wanting to sell. And then, or you've had that super high rent increase and you've been kicked out of your home. So that aspect is one of the most challenging concepts for a New Yorker emotionally. So when you think about those things, getting rent increases every year, and you have to decide, am I going to pay it or am I going to try and move? Or getting kicked out of your home because your owner is going to sell. That trauma will force people to buy, and it'll force people to do, to make the decision and commit, because otherwise they're going to go through that scenario every single year, and it's a lot of trauma, and they take all of the emotional stress out on us. So I think that it's not the most important thing.
Which I think is beginning to show more and more lately. I agree with you 100%. But Ian, based on what Daniel just said, are buyers becoming more analytical, or are they still kind of, and less emotional, or are they still kind of holding on to that very emotional, whatever you want to call it, that drives them to buy something in New York? Now, we all know, and I've said this for years, and even when I'm teaching, this is a very emotional business, okay?
Yeah.
Everyone involved in the transaction, it's all very emotional, sometimes to its detriment. But do you see buyers becoming a little bit more analytical, or are they sticking to
I think it
the
depends
profile?
it depends on how much money they have and where the money came from, honestly.
Oh, there you go.
To put it bluntly.
Always comes down to money, bottom line.
I think in certain price points, for people that made their own money, right? In usually finance, those people are highly analytical, right? They're looking at this as an investment. I would call this the $1 to $4 million buyer, right? They're very, very, very keen on every single dollar and understanding where it's going and whether it's going up or not, and balancing renting versus buying. They want data, they want spreadsheets, they want everything. The higher you get in number, I would say they're cash buyers. They are analytical, but they're still used to getting what they want. They want what they want when they want it. So if they're still gonna be analytical to a degree, but there's more blurriness along the edges of it when it comes to like emotion, right? Those people tend to have kids. They tend to be a little bit forced into neighborhood for schools or something like that. They want certain things in a certain amount of time. There's multiple people making the decision, right? If you have someone who inherited money, or you have someone I find that made a lot of money really fast, right? Like a tech exit, something like that.
You can say Bitcoin, it's okay.
Sure, Bitcoin.
Oh,
like,
crypto.
I'm more so I'm talking about someone who like experienced a tech exit and made a lot of money really fast, right?
And there's a lot of that.
They make money different than finance people. They come into a lot of money very fast.
Absolutely.
They are going to buy more emotionally because it just frankly matters less.
Yep.
And they're going to bend less on a lot of things.
But
they
what
do want to know that like they're still making the right investment.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
But what aspect of the transaction, if you can call, minimize it to transaction, brings out that emotion in most people? And I get what you said, and you're absolutely correct. But why does it have to be emotional? You know, I guess that's $1 million question, but really when you think about it, it should be, you know, steps. You either agree to them, you don't agree to them. You have the money to buy it or you don't. You want to buy it or you don't. What drives that emotion?
Well, I think one, people fall in love with something.
Yep.
They envision a lifestyle in a space, or
Yeah.
they envision a lifestyle in an area, and then once anything goes wrong in that transaction or becomes difficult or competitive or anything,
Yeah.
it messes with that lifestyle vision, right? It's like your dream of tomorrow is all of a sudden compromised. So some people sit, social media makes this worse, like they sit, they dream, they see things, they want a certain type of thing. Like I literally get asked, I want a kitchen window that looks like so-and-so's from Architectural Digest.
Yeah.
That's my vision of a New York home, right?
Yeah, I think you're right on that.
And then again, the process is wildly inefficient, right? People will get outbid. Brokers will be duplicitous. Like things will go left a little bit. And
little
then,
bit.
and then the emotions are riding really, really high because people feel really vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I think you have to just be really careful with that in a transaction. The buyers tend to be shaky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the concept that right now they actually have to do something for themselves when they're buying something for themselves. So it becomes a self-worth aspect. It becomes in self-worth, entitlement. It's big money that they're putting down.
Especially
so
when somebody's
the fact that
successful
it's-
quickly and they want to spend that money and buy
Yeah.
something really nice. Right?
But there's big money, but then it's monthly carrying costs. Then there's the
exactly.
condition of it.
Absolutely.
Is
Yeah.
it going to fill their ego or is it filling financial? And you can't necessarily always balance the two of ego versus financial sense. And how do we then figure that out and weighing pros and cons? And then there's a lot of people. I just learned that 50% of the American or of the U.S. or world population doesn't have an internal monologue. So how do you then, if you can't reason and think through things, how do you balance ego,
That's a very
emotions,
interesting point.
money, safety, security, and what you want versus what your friends want for you? Do your friends want you to buy in Tribeca, but really you want a townhouse in Ditmas Park so that everybody leaves you alone? Like, it's trying to fill in these different voids, and it's aspirational living versus what lifestyle do you really, really want? And most of the people don't even know.
No.
And then they buy something and then they get stuck in scenarios.
Yeah.
And everybody knows somebody that got convinced to buy something. And then they're not happy with it 3 or 4 months after they actually live there because they bought a shiny object. And now they can't get out of it because, again, it's big money. And I always tell people that if you're going to buy, sell, and then buy again, your closing costs on that combination is about 12%, give or take.
Oh, yeah.
So let's really figure out all the nuances of what you want so that it's not 3 months of, oh my God, this is awesome, and then what did I do?
Well, that's where
And
our
it's-
advice comes in. you know,
Correct.
Perfectly. But Ian, again, to all these points, what assumptions are real estate agents making that could, these days, based on everything else we're talking about assumptions, what are real estate agents assumptions making that can hurt their clients, purchase, sale, whatever? Because we make assumptions as well as our clients do. I mean, that's
I think we make a lot of assumptions.
Human nature,
I think you make assumptions that people are going to listen to you, right? That the
that's for
clients are going
starters,
to
yeah.
listen to you. I think you make assumptions that your broker colleagues are always giving you all of the information that they should be giving you,
and they're not.
right? Which is a major problem in how you're guiding the buyers if you're on the buy side, and frankly, you're on the sell side too. And I also think that I will say I make this mistake too, make an assumption that the right property will ultimately come up, right? So sometimes people will say, okay, I'll wait a couple of months, and I was like, let's pause it, let's restart. Sometimes it's not, right? It's
I think that's the
three,
biggest,
3,
like, that's
6,
the
9,
jackpot.
12,
I'm
2
actually
years.
I'm
like,
actually doing that right now,
That's the
so I'm
jackpot.
listening
It's not gonna
intently
come.
to what you're saying.
yeah, it might not.
It might not.
arise, right?
Right.
Like it might not exist. So you have to sometimes just assess. Now that I've been in this for 13 years, you just assess like how many properties are really going to come on the market this year. How many am I really going to know about that are going to be in this price point? Honestly, you have to push people to sometimes just, I don't want to say settle, but just like maybe be realistic about what the options are.
I think realistic is the right
Yeah.
word, and,
Yeah.
and you're 100% correct on that.
And that's what's great about summer is that this is the time we can actually give people that education.
Yeah, exactly.
But they have to be willing to listen. And
But as I always say on this program, we have to be credible. We have to be authentic. People have to trust us because when you
Correct.
have to give them this kind of advice, they'll take it
Yeah.
for the most part.
Allegedly.
Right, because we know a lot of banana heads, here we go again with that term, in this industry, who just really don't do that and don't really care because they're very transactionally oriented. I know guys are absolutely
I'm going to
not.
add one other also, that I think that we also tend to assume that all sellers need to sell, right? Which I think is extremely untrue.
Very
and
untrue.
I would say a huge problem I'm having in the market right now. I think that a lot of sellers will sell. And I think especially when you're in a time when the stock market has been ripping for so long, I don't think a lot of them need to sell whatsoever.
No.
So I think a lot of them are in a position where unless they get their number or their perceived number in their head, they're not actually really sellers.
I completely agree with that. I've got one right now. We've always heard that Manhattan will always come back. And we've been through, I'm 24 years in this business, up and down cycles like you can't even imagine. I should write a book about it someday. But we always hear, though, that Manhattan's going to come back. New York City real estate, rather, is going to come back. Is that a phrase that's too simplistic these days in today's market, or is there fact to it?
I think it's way too simple, but there's also fact to it. Because New York City is a place where we live that, I mean, going back into a theme that we've had, there's so much money here, and there's always going to be so much money here.
Right.
And even with the concept of a pied-à-terre tax and with whatever and what we've dealt with during COVID, people always want to be in New York City, and that is because we are adult Disney World. This is where you can get anything you want at any time. There is no concept of, I drank too much. Now I got to figure out, like, I got to take my car home. I got to Uber. Then I got to figure this out in the morning. And you don't have to think about anything. If you go to a restaurant because you forgot to make reservations and they're full, you go next door. You don't have to get in your car, drive somewhere else, hit traffic. We have almost zero cares. If you have a 10-year-old kid, they can run across the street to Starbucks versus, I got to wait for everybody to get in a car. You have almost no hassle and complete independence. I'm told that when kids start at like 11 years old, they're essentially like completely independent. And that's when the adults can get their lives back. So because of that, we've always been very busy. And what we needed was ultimately the return to office is what now makes people back in the city at mass, because you can only commute into the city an hour and a half each way for so long. That becomes exhausting. And when you live a lifestyle where you can get anything you want at any time, and now you actually have to sacrifice X amount of time, you're going to give that up because that's the thing that's going to go. And regardless of any time of, and we've had news reports for the last 15 years, every single year, the millionaires and billionaires are leaving. Well, the two of us are still doing a ton of deals in the 10 plus million range. And they're the millionaires and billionaires. So when you think about all of this, New York City makes zero financial sense for anybody at all.
It was always that way.
It will, no matter how much money you have, millionaire, billionaire, whatever, it doesn't make financial sense for you. There's also always somebody with more money. We are purely here for lifestyle because, like Ian and I, we could go to a different market and dominate that and probably make more money than what we do doing what we're doing in this market and have lower monthly carrying costs. But the lifestyle of New York is impossible to give up because
it's in your blood.
I mean, it's Stockholm syndrome. We can't trade it. So when you think about all of that, New York City is back because of the return to office. We are seeing that appreciation in different markets. You just have to be the buyer that's willing to understand exposure, condition. Price per square foot is the easiest way to overpay for an apartment, tricky developers. And really good real estate is always going to be good real estate. Just you have to listen to experts to understand what's not crap.
Okay, we've got one more block to go. We're coming back after these messages. Don't go anywhere. This is Talking New York Real Estate on the More Network. We're coming right back.
Hi, I'm Dylan Pachulik, CEO of XL Real Property Management, New York's most trusted name in luxury property management since 2012. We specialize in managing individual apartments, townhouses, and rental buildings held by absentee owners. We maintain our properties with the highest standards of quality and service so that owners can choose a hassle-free approach to real estate investing. Rented or owner-occupied, we handle it all. For more information, contact us at xl-rpm.com.
I'm Mark Lawrence, a founding partner of Worldwide Land Transfer. As a former real estate agent and attorney, I understand this business from every angle. We specialize in the complex transactions that define the luxury market: trust, LLCs, estates, and inherited properties. For more information, contact me directly at 917-204-5363.
Okay, we are back. So, what neighborhoods, Ian, or property types are surprising you the most this year, either positively or negatively? We talked a little bit about neighborhood. Neighborhood is still, location is still important, whatever. But are there any neighborhoods or any property types that are surprising you this year that you maybe were like, wow, that's not really normal, or I don't really remember that? Because I think this year is changing a little bit.
I've been surprised with the townhouse demand this year. So I always do a decent amount of townhouse business.
I just sold one, yeah.
And I've had 2021 or like 2020 was like the time when townhouses, interestingly, did sort of the best because people didn't want to be in buildings. People didn't want neighbors.
Outdoor
and people had a lot of money. And they all of a sudden were like, oh, maybe I'll buy a townhouse.
Right.
It's also one of the only things you could show because you couldn't get past doormen, right?
Correct.
So, but always townhouses are like a scary thing for people to buy. They take a long time to sell. They're hard to price. They need a lot of work. People are scared of security. People are scared of the responsibility. But this year, I think people have gotten a lot richer, and I think they want more space, a lot more space. And sometimes you just simply cannot find it. It literally doesn't exist in a building. Like some people ask me to put 3 apartments together, right? And it's really hard to find. The monthlies are a huge thing too.
When you do that, yeah.
The monthlies, if you get a huge amount of space in a condo, your monthlies are $4 a foot, something like that. In a townhouse, they're remarkably low, remarkably low.
Remarkably low.
Really low.
Yeah.
I think that the historically low crime in the city, which is against all the headlines, but actually is true, right? We're at a historic low level of crime. People are more comfortable. I have moms who never would have looked in a townhouse, never asking me about townhouses now. And basically, I am out of product, right? All of my townhouses are gone.
Yeah. Everything's selling.
Many in competitive
selling very quickly.
scenarios.
Yeah, everything.
And if you track some of the biggest like people are buying huge houses, massive houses.
Yeah.
I've had 4 clients in the past month ask me to find them double wide houses. So I think that's like sort of an interesting
And
thing.
double wide is even less available.
Yeah, I mean, these are the people that should move to Greenwich, right? But they want to stay in the city, right? They want to replicate the lifestyle but stay in the city.
Of course.
So that's been sort of shocking to me.
Of course.
That these people that all of a sudden it's like that demand for that type of product is very different than the people who would very happily have bought a 4 to 5 bedroom condo before.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I had a townhouse buyer on Upper West Side, and there were only 6 homes I could show him.
Yeah.
6.
And control.
Right.
Control of your value, control of your systems, right? I have someone in a huge fight with their building about like replacing the chiller on the roof. Nobody wants to pay for it. It's so expensive. Everyone wants to sue the developer. Whereas your townhouse, you put it in, you call the contractor, you fix it, right?
There's nothing
you know
like
it was
it.
done
If you
right.
could afford it, or if you're in that price range, I mean, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
No.
Townhouse living, I mean, my dream would be to do that in the West Village. Love it.
But security also. It's like you can 3 houses on the same block. You guys can pay for somebody for 24/7 security on the block. And your monthlies are still going to be less than a condo.
Of course.
100%.
Let's talk about technology a little bit and AI. We talk about assumptions and how things have changed or how they are changing and how we quickly jump on board or not. Has technology and AI changed the consumer's search for homes and how they gather information about what they want to see? And what assumptions about the role of a real estate professional has become outdated because of the access to technology, because of AI and all of that good stuff? Thoughts?
I think AI is giving people, I think access to listings is basically like out the window for brokers, right? Like you can have off-market listings and access to private exclusives, but by and large, the buyers can find the listings on their own, right? They have apps, they have notifications, they can put in AI searches and get given the ones that are on the market. Pretty straightforward. They still need you to digest them, right? So that hasn't changed whatsoever.
Right. Or to bless them or not.
A big thing that I've noticed in the past 3 months that's changing, which is something that we need to react to, is that people are using specifically Claude to negotiate, right? And to value properties and to tell them the cadence at which to negotiate and at what numbers to negotiate. And it is remarkably good, but it is not. It's frequently wrong, right?
Yep.
So the valuations that it puts in there are a lot of times wrong because the data is wrong in New York, right? So it's not necessarily Claude's fault. It's more like the source of the data's fault.
The data's wrong.
There's nothing that's consistent.
Yeah.
Right.
So
the data is wrong across all platforms, but that is, as I always say, broker problems, agent problems.
Yeah, exactly. So
You
I
put
think
crap in, crap is going to come out.
I think on both sides, I'm seeing sellers and buyers both when they're reacting to certain offers or pricing suggestions.
Yeah.
Give me very clear AI, emails with like fonts all over the place and everything, and and it's problematic, but it's also it's like a jumping off point for discussion.
Yeah,
I find
as soon as I get that email, I say, great. When is a good time for a quick call?
Yeah.
And then I want to talk through everything because ultimately he and I, all three of us, will be able to discredit most of what it is very quickly. And the great thing about discrediting it is that when you are an intelligent agent, you can actually defend and you can support each one of your points about why AI gets discredited in the New York City real estate market. So because our pricing swings can be massive due to renovation, in a townhouse where the kitchen is located, where bathrooms are located, the specific block. Is it at the end of the block or mid-block? North or south facing? There's so many other aspects to this that AI doesn't even know how to read it or what that value is because nothing is consistent, that when you're really looking at the nuance of things, it can get discredited very quickly. So it can give you a basis for valuation, which makes all of our jobs much faster and easier because we can see, have there been sales of buildings that are going to block our view? Is there anything else that's going to come up that we can do that much faster? But it's better for situations like that versus AI. And like we've had Street Easy, we've had all the company's websites since you and I have been in real estate for 13 years. A monkey can find a property.
Yeah.
So
But as you said before, you have to. It's important when they send you all of these links and whatever. It's important to jump on a phone call with them and talk about it, because half the time when people send me links, they're already sold, they're in contract. Street Easy doesn't always update quickly because agents aren't updating the sites quickly. So we've got to be on top of all of that because, it's easy to find something, but that doesn't mean it's available. It doesn't mean that it's ready to go and see. It might be gone. I'm having that problem right now. Everything that someone is sending to me, it's gone.
yeah.
And that's a good thing. But, we have to learn how to better update our systems. What advice, Ian, do you find yourself giving clients today that you rarely or ever gave your clients, sellers or buyers, 5 years ago? Is there anything specific today that you're giving out as advice to your clients that you never really thought you had to in the past?
This is kind of a funny one. I frequently am telling people not to use me to find rentals anymore on the tenant side.
Yep.
Thank
all the
you.
time.
Which is something before, of course, like if you want to hire me to find your rental, I'll do it.
It's something I never did anyway, and it's something that I don't really want to do.
I actually think I'm giving people, I will qualify this in a certain price point, right? Many people in a higher price point are willing, they want concierge service, they want off-market access, they want that type of process, which I can offer. But a lot of times I actually think you're worse off hiring a tenants agent right now because it's so competitive.
Yeah.
Right?
It is.
I tell anybody that comes to me like that, I'm like, listen, I'm happy to put together a search for you. If there's something that you see that you want to, or that you see online that you want to go see, then schedule it or send it to me.
Right.
And because we know so many other agents, we can throw our weight in there and get you the apartment, because that's our value on the tenant side, is actually getting you the apartment. Because as agents, we all want to do each other favors.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we want to work with each other. I'd rather
Of
work
course.
with another agent
Of course.
than
Of
somebody
course.
who's not unrepresented.
But a lot of those rentals are also gone. By the time you even call your buddy or another agent or whatever, I've got one rental client now, and only because it's high end and I do the same thing, I do not want to deal with it. Everything is gone. I am struggling.
Yeah, it's a broken market.
Yeah.
Basically.
I'm struggling to find something, and they've got to move.
Yeah, that's why they have to buy. It's a great thing about New York.
From your mouth to God's ears, okay? That's true. Looking ahead, though, What assumptions do you think people are making now that we'll be laughing about 5 years from today? I mean, we can go through this in any market or any year that we've been in this industry, but if we think about today, if we think about assumptions being made today, are we going to laugh about them 5 years from now because things are going to change again?
I do think that I don't know if laugh is the word, but I think that we may look back and like say
Regret.
that we were over focused and overblown on political focus and the tax focus. I think that it is real and it's dumb to minimize it, but at the same time, I think focusing on like those more micro issues and how they're going to greatly affect the market downward in some scenario, like in some buyers' minds, is they're going to look back on that and probably regret it, maybe laugh, right? But saying that like these littler things are going to massively affect the market downward is probably not true. And I can say that because I've seen it multiple times, right? Like if you go back 2016, everyone thought the real estate market was going to fall apart when Trump was elected, and he like took away the SALT deduction, and then the transfer taxes changed, and then the rental laws changed, and now we have the pied-à-terre tax. And like, yes, for a brief period, they do cause a pause and a slight downturn in many parts of the market. But net long term, they really don't. So I think if the market peaks again, you know, if it go to a point you're like the market's really peaking, it's highly competitive, they're going to look back and be like, okay, it really didn't affect the market that much.
Yeah, and I mean, that's my experience, and you have a thought on that? I mean, because I think that anything we might say today, assumption-wise or whatever, it's going to change anyway. And it's, I think really it's based on how we handle it today or a year from now or 5 years from now. Because again, we are, or should be, the credible expert, right? And people that we sell to today might come back to us 5 years from now and say, hey, Vince, by the way, can we do this? Can I do that? What is your opinion on? And I like it when my clients ask me, past clients that I've worked with, what is your opinion on? That says, okay, they trust me, they believe what I have to say, I'm credible. That's all we can ask for in this industry.
Yeah.
Right? So what do you think may be different 5 years from now?
I mean, I'll echo what Ian has said. We have a lot of neighborhoods that are growing, but people aren't willing to move to those neighborhoods, which is annoying. We have a lot of people that, I know people at 70 Vestry, which they have a $16 to $20 million 4-bed, and half the people that they all know are miserable and they want to move to Miami. But then you look at Florida, and I think I saw a stat that said 1 in 7 homes in Florida is for sale right now. So you think about these other demographics, there's problems everywhere. And we always think that there's greener pastures. And one reason that these people that live in that building aren't going to sell is because if they sell and they're wrong, which we all agree that they're wrong because there's no issues that are going to happen in New York City. Our city, even though I don't necessarily agree with a lot of politics and I don't agree with everything, we have a different environment and we have a different market for both real estate, like the economy in general, and that people have to live in certain locations and blocks. They're not going to end. But people that are living in these other buildings that think that they would want to sell, there's zero inventory. So if you sell and you move and then you think you're going to end up coming back here in 3 to 4 years because you can only live in Miami for so long until you're bored or other things, you're going to move back. And if you're going to move back, where are you going to live? Because the odds of finding something in that building again and getting it at the price that you want are very, very slim. So it becomes a mathematical question.
I completely agree. So, you know, buyers, sellers, investors, whomever who are listening today, what's the one mindset shift they need to make in order to succeed in this business? And then I want to ask you about inventory. Mindset. What do they have to change to be successful? We talked about a whole bunch of things today, but if you can just net it down to a couple of sentences, what do we need? Our buyers, sellers, renters, investors, whether they're pied-à-terre buyers or whatever, what do they need to do to change that mindset in order for them to understand where we are today, understand what our market is today, understand what all the regulation changes are, but what do they need to do to be successful despite all of that?
I'll add that mindset thing to any advice that I give anybody that is looking at considering moving to New York City. or is moving here, because I think that the same thing applies. And the same concept whenever I talk to other real estate agents, like, oh, I would do business in New York City. Look at your numbers. I'm like, well, this is how we do business. And they're like, nope, I would never do that.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about mindset in the all-encompassing concept of living in New York City is basically a character in your life. There's always you, the humans that you're with, and then New York City is there to fuck with you in every possible way.
I love the way you describe New York City all the time.
It will reward you, and it will rip you down. So what you have to do is think about New York City as a character. And you have to look at it and say, all right, New York, and we'll all know people that have moved to the city, that they come to the city and they're like, all right, I'm going to make New York City my bitch. I'm going to become the #1, blah, blah, blah. They get kicked out very quickly. When you come to the city, the people that do insanely well say, all right, New York City, I'm here. What do you want to teach me? How am I here to live? Here's this new aspect of life. I made this much money. Now, what do I get to learn at that level? What do you want to teach me? Because New York City will teach you. The harder that you fight it, the more it will humble you. And that is across every single profession, every single lifestyle, whether you're buying or selling.
Doesn't matter.
The more ego that you have tied up in it, it is New York City, what do you want to teach me? And then listen.
There's a word, listen.
I love that.
Okay. Ian, I read something you in one of your email distributions yesterday, Market Report, and thank you for putting me on that list. I love it. You say supply continued its recent downward trend, declining for the third consecutive week just recently. While inventory has followed its seasonal pattern, okay, it has done so from a meaningfully lower starting point. Active listings remain roughly 600 units below where they were just last year at this time. Reinforcing, I guess, what we've been talking about and have been talking about. What is your 2 cents on all of that? Where are we, or how, better said, are we going to be able to change that inventory? Because as Daniel said a minute ago, you also said it before, you know, inventory is how we make a living.
Yeah.
Without inventory, we can't do our jobs.
Yeah. I mean, we have to build one, right? That's a huge one.
Yeah, that's a big one, but we can't. There's not much going on.
We have to build not just 10 to 20 apartments at a time,
right?
Which is another huge problem in the city.
Right.
We're kind of in this. We're still in this. Like, it's getting boring to talk about it, but we're in this interest rate trap scenario, right? 5 years in, and we kept saying, okay, when the interest rates drop, people are going to sell because they can move again. It's the same thing. I talked to so many people at every price point that still have really low interest rates, right?
100%.
And then in that scenario, some of these people, if they want to move, they're just going to rent out the apartment because the rental market is so strong.
Yeah.
So I just had a meeting yesterday. They want to sell a co-op, and they're like, listen, we have a 2.2% interest rate still for another 4 years. Yeah. I'd rather rent it for 2 to 3 years before I actually have to sell it. And
we've all heard that same argument.
Back,
exactly.
right? So the answer is I don't honestly know. I think most people are selling ultimately out of force, right? They're having another kid, they're downsizing, they're changing jobs, they're moving out of the city, something like that. They're not really selling by choice still. So I think that until we have land cheap enough, construction costs cheap enough, and regulations where we're going to be able to build buildings with a meaningful amount of apartments that are actually in like a generally middling affordability range.
Is this going to happen in our lifetime?
I think we're going to be a little bit screwed for a bit. And I think that you're going to not see like people really pleased with the level of inventory.
You know, for years I sold a lot of brand new development buildings and condo development projects for this company, and I did it for 15 years. And I haven't been on a project in about 2.5 years. And so to your point before, you know, that inventory has dwindled. There isn't a lot of it. There's not a lot of building out there for the same damn reason, and that's interest rates. Developers suffer the same issue that buyers do. So there is no new inventory. I mean, I would put a building on the market and literally, you know, I would sell units like bananas, fast and furious. And it was very rewarding and people got what they wanted. That hasn't happened in years. So that's part of the problem. And the other problem is, as you said, people have to upsize, downsize, whatever, move, you know, divorce, you know, families grow. You know, they're looking at a 2.5% interest rate. They're like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Or no, I don't want to do that. I can do it maybe somewhere down the road when things get better, but I can't do that right now.
I know we did a whole episode on this once, but it's also becoming very confusing what the inventory levels actually are because of all the private exclusives and off market and every company reporting different numbers.
Well, that's another thing too.
Right.
But I read your article, your thing yesterday, and I'm like, I got to ask him about that because you're right. I mean, it's perfect.
The general trend is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, it's also, I think that we have less inventory because people are actually back in the city. And
Yeah.
there's can't
that
sell.
started
So
it, yeah.
regardless of the interest rate, there's nothing for you to buy.
No.
So sellers that are coming on the market right now, it's going back to the first time where if you come on the market, you're actually going to sell. Whereas there's been a long time, and this is one of the confusion for buyers, somebody I've been out with all week, oh, well, this one's been on the market for 2 years. Right. Just because it's been on the market for 2 years and they say that they have an offer now, it's likely true because this is what's happening in our market. Yeah. Sellers that are coming on the market today, we are in a different market. If they come on, they're likely going to sell, even in the areas like Midtown East that have struggled just because of who that demographic of a buyer has been.
Correct.
And it's been non-existent for the last 6 years.
Right.
So now that that's all back, if you come on the market, you're probably going to sell. So if we gave you a number last year on what your home was worth, it might be different today. So when you look at that, sellers need to believe that they can actually sell, and now that's actually happened. And then they need to have a place to go. And now we're in that part where there isn't really anywhere for them to go. So this is where you can, the inventory can exist. There's a lot of people that will sell. They just don't necessarily believe that they can sell. So this is where we need to work with the buyers, see some things that aren't necessarily going to work, and then we can figure out from that what buildings would work for you and then create inventory for specifically you. It's more effort, it's more time, but that's the market that we're in.
I agree. And unfortunately, we are so out of time. We will be right back after these messages with my final thoughts. Don't go anywhere.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Okay, everybody, we are back with my final thoughts. So real estate has never been about predicting the future with certainty. It's about understanding change before everyone else does. The headlines will change, interest rates will rise and fall, markets will expand, contract and reinvent themselves, as New York has done so many times, time and time again. But one thing remains constant: informed decisions will always outperform early assumptions. Whether you're buying your home, selling a treasured one, investing in the future, or building a career in this extraordinary business, stay curious, keep asking questions, and never stop learning. The market rewards preparation far more than prediction. The smartest people in real estate aren't the ones who think they know everything or have all the answers. They're the ones who ask all the right questions. And that's it for this episode of Talking New York Real Estate. Before we go, though, I want to leave you with a thought. Time has a way of changing how we interpret everything, decisions we make about everything, opportunities we've passed on, risks. So the question is not just what you decide today, but how these decisions will look in the distance. Are you making choices that will make sense to you a year from now, 5 years from now, or are they the responsiveness to urgency at the moment? The most effective people tend to think beyond intimacy. They act with today in mind, but not only for today, because perspective, not urgency, is what sharpens judgment over time. And because when you put these four things together, clarity, ownership, attention, and perspective, you get something rare: better judgment. And in real estate, as in life, better judgment is often the difference between reacting and moving with purpose. You can follow me on Facebook, on Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, or TikTok at Vince Rocco. And John Wooden says, if you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over? And from all of us here at Talking New York Real Estate and the More Network, to all of you all around the world, Thanks for spending a part of your day with us. I am grateful. Keep thinking the good thoughts, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.